Hello, and welcome to Cats for Sleep. Tonight, we're going to spend some quiet time exploring how cats hear the world around them. We'll move slowly and gently, beginning from the inside out. Before we talk about ears, or sound waves, or tiny structures deep within the head, it helps to pause and notice something simpler. Cats listen as a way of being. For a cat, sound rarely arrives all at once. It comes softly. It settles into the space. It becomes part of the atmosphere they live inside. If you've ever watched a cat resting in a quiet room, you may have noticed how still they seem. Their body is relaxed. Their eyes may be half closed, and yet their ears remain open to the world. A distant footstep, the hum of an appliance in another room, a bird calling far beyond a window. These sounds invite no movement. They rest gently alongside the cat. They exist as part of the background of awareness. Cats listen without urgency. They listen with presence. Sound, for them, becomes a form of orientation. It helps them feel where they are, what is near, what is familiar. In a quiet home, sound forms a kind of map. The shape of the space reveals itself through echoes, softness, and distance. Walls feel closer or farther, depending on how sound moves through them. Rooms announce themselves quietly, without needing to be seen. A cat lying in the center of it all remains still. Listening carries the work of understanding the space. As we move through this video, we'll gently follow how sound enters a cat's ears, how it travels inward, and how it becomes something the brain can recognize. At its core, hearing for a cat stays calm and continuous. It's always there, always open, always ready. If you're settling in for sleep tonight, you might notice something similar happening in your own body. As rest deepens, sounds around you may soften. Some drift away. Others remain as a quiet backdrop, offering a sense of safety where you are. If this is your first time here, you're very welcome. And if you find comfort in these slow, gentle explorations, you're invited to subscribe. It helps this channel continue reaching others who are also looking for calm explanations and quiet companionship at night. As we continue, there's nothing that needs attention or effort. Details can pass by naturally. Everything unfolds at its own pace. For now, we'll stay with the idea that cats hear the world the same way they move through it. With patience, with steadiness, with quiet attention that asks nothing of the moment. In the next section, we'll begin by looking at the outer shape of a cat's ear and how its form quietly gathers sound long before it's ever noticed. For now, just rest. When you look closely at a cat's ear, the first thing you may notice is its openness. The ear stands upright, gently curved, and softly alert, even when the rest of the body is completely at ease. This outer part of the ear is called the pinna. It's formed from flexible cartilage shaped over time to receive sound with ease. Wide at the opening and gradually narrowing inward, the pinna creates a natural pathway, guiding sound toward the deeper structures of the ear. Sound doesn't arrive suddenly. It drifts in. It settles along the curves and folds, following the gentle architecture of the ear. The surface of the pinna is not smooth or flat. It holds subtle ridges, shallow valleys, and soft angles that influence how sound moves. These small details help guide sound downward, allowing even very faint noises to be gathered and shaped. A light rustle across the floor, a quiet shift in the air, a movement too subtle to be seen. Each of these sounds has a place to land. The pinna works as a first point of contact between the cat and the surrounding world. It collects sound without effort, offering it a direction without pressure. Nothing is forced inward. Everything flows naturally. Cats also have a remarkable ability to move their ears independently. Beneath the fur, many small muscles allow each ear to rotate, tilt, and adjust its position with precision. These movements are often slow and minimal, sometimes only a few degrees at a time. An ear may turn slightly toward a sound, then pause. Another ear may angle outward, listening to a different part of the room. Together, they create a wide field of awareness, allowing the cat to sense space without shifting its body. This independent movement gives sound depth. Near sounds feel closer and fuller. Far sounds feel lighter and more distant. Each arrives with its own quality. The shape of the pinna also influences how different frequencies are gathered. Higher-pitched sounds tend to reflect along tighter curves near the opening of the ear. Lower sounds spread more broadly across the surface, arriving with a softer presence. Before sound ever reaches the inner ear, it has already been gently shaped and organized by the pinna. Details begin to form early. Textures emerge. Direction becomes clearer. In a quiet home, this might include the low hum of electricity moving through walls, or the faint rhythm of footsteps on another floor. Outdoors, it could be the layered sounds of wind, leaves, distant birds, and shifting air. Even during rest, a cat's ears remain quietly active. They respond to changes in the soundscape without effort. An ear may rotate slightly, then return to stillness. The movement happens naturally, like a slow breath. This steady responsiveness allows cats to remain deeply relaxed while staying aware of their surroundings. There is no tension in the listening. Awareness flows easily alongside rest. The openness of the ear also supports comfort. Air moves freely across the surface. Heat escapes gently. The ear remains sensitive without feeling overwhelmed by constant input. As sound moves inward, the outer ear completes its role without ceremony. The pinna gathers, it shapes, it releases sound onward. If you imagine sound as something soft and physical, the cat's ear gives it a place to rest before continuing its journey. Nothing rushes, nothing resists. For a cat resting nearby, this process continues whether they're awake, drowsy, or drifting into sleep. The ears remain open, balanced between awareness and rest, receiving the world exactly as it arrives. In the next section, we'll follow sound as it travels deeper, moving from the open curves of the ear into the narrow passage of the ear canal, where vibrations begin their quiet journey inward. For now, you can let this image settle. The gentle curve of an ear, sound arriving softly, everything held in quiet balance. One of the most distinctive features of a cat's hearing is movement. Even when the body is completely still, the ears remain gently active, adjusting and responding to the world around them. Each of a cat's ears can move on its own. They rotate, tilt, and angle independently, guided by a network of small muscles beneath the skin. These movements are smooth and precise, often subtle enough to pass unnoticed unless you're watching closely. An ear may turn slightly toward a sound, pause, and then settle. The other ear may remain facing forward or slowly shift in another direction. Together, they create a wide, layered field of listening that surrounds the cat without requiring any movement of the head or body. This ability allows cats to listen in more than one direction at once. Sound arrives from across the room, from behind a wall, from a window left slightly open. Each ear takes in its own portion of the space, collecting information quietly and continuously. The motion of the ears feels calm rather than reactive. There's no sudden snapping or rigid attention. The adjustments are gradual, like a slow scan of the environment. This gentle scanning helps cats understand where sounds are coming from. As a sound reaches one ear slightly before the other, or with a slightly different quality, the ears respond by adjusting their angle. These tiny differences carry meaning, helping the cat sense direction and distance with ease. A faint sound nearby may cause a small, focused turn of one ear. A distant sound may prompt a broader adjustment, both ears opening outward to gather more of the surrounding space. Because each ear can move independently, cats don't need to face a sound directly to understand it. They can remain relaxed, resting in place, while their ears quietly map the room. This design allows listening to happen without interrupting rest. A cat can be lying comfortably, eyes closed, body loose, while the ears continue their slow, steady movements. Listening remains active, even as the rest of the body settles deeper into stillness. You may notice this during a quiet evening. A cat rests nearby, seemingly asleep, when one ear turns briefly toward a distant sound. After a moment, it returns to its original position, and stillness resumes. These movements happen automatically. They don't require focus or intention. They arise naturally as part of how cats remain oriented within their environment. The muscles that control the ears are finely tuned. They allow for small adjustments rather than large motions. This precision helps maintain a sense of calm while staying aware. Each ear movement carries information: angle, distance, texture of sound. Together, these small signals build a soft, ongoing understanding of the space around the cat. In a quiet home, this might include the subtle layering of familiar sounds: a refrigerator humming steadily, air moving gently through a vent, footsteps passing softly in another room. The ears register each sound without urgency. They adjust just enough to acknowledge it, then return to rest. Outdoors, the same movements help cats navigate a much broader soundscape. Wind moving through leaves, birds calling from different directions, insects shifting in the grass. Each ear listens outward, then inward, continuously balancing the surrounding sounds. This independent movement also helps cats conserve energy. Instead of turning the entire body toward every sound, the ears handle most of the work. The body remains at rest, while awareness stays open. For a cat, listening is woven into stillness. Movement and rest exist together, without conflict. As sound changes, the ears respond. As sound settles, the ears settle too. This quiet responsiveness allows cats to feel secure. They remain aware of their surroundings without needing to stay alert in a tense way. Awareness flows naturally alongside relaxation. If you're resting while listening to this, you may notice something similar in yourself. Even as your body relaxes, a part of your awareness remains gently open. Sounds may come and go without drawing your attention. Just like a cat, you don't need to respond to every sound. They can pass through the space around you, noticed briefly, then released. In the next section, we'll follow sound as it continues inward, moving beyond the outer ear and into the deeper passage of the ear canal, where vibration begins its quiet transformation. For now, you can rest with this image: a still body, ears moving gently, awareness remaining open, calm, and steady. Once sound has been gathered by the outer curves of the ear, it begins a quieter, narrower journey inward. From the open shape of the pinna, sound moves gently into the ear canal, a long, tapered passage that guides it deeper into the ear. The ear canal of a cat is deeper and more angled than it appears from the outside. It curves softly, turning sound away from the open air and toward a more protected inner space. This shape allows sound to travel steadily, without interruption, as it moves toward the eardrum. Here, sound becomes more focused. The wide openness of the outer ear gives way to a sense of direction. The canal gathers what has already been shaped and carries it forward, holding it in place just long enough for the next stage of listening to begin. As sound travels through the canal, it remains a physical motion. Vibrations move through the air inside, brushing gently against the canal walls. Nothing feels sudden or sharp. Everything progresses at a measured pace. The length and shape of the ear canal help preserve detail. Higher tones and softer sounds remain intact as they move inward. The canal acts as a quiet guide, ensuring that sound arrives clearly and evenly. This part of the ear also offers protection. By bending inward, the canal shields the more delicate inner structures from the outside environment. Dust, debris, and sudden shifts in air remain at the edges, while sound alone continues its path. For a resting cat, this process happens continuously. There is no pause between one sound and the next. The canal remains open, receptive, and calm, allowing sound to pass through without effort. If you imagine sound as something flowing, the ear canal becomes a narrow stream. It carries what it's given, neither holding on nor rushing forward. The movement remains smooth and uninterrupted. Inside a quiet home, this might include the low murmur of distant activity, a door closing softly, water moving through pipes, air settling after someone passes by. Each sound enters the ear canal gently, guided inward without drawing attention to itself. The canal's shape also supports a sense of continuity. Sound doesn't feel separate or isolated. It arrives as part of an ongoing stream of awareness. For cats, this steady flow helps maintain comfort. There's no startled response built into the passage itself. The canal simply delivers sound to where it needs to go. As the vibration moves closer to the eardrum, it becomes more concentrated. The space narrows slightly. The sound gathers energy, preparing for the moment it will meet the thin membrane ahead. This preparation happens quietly. There's no signal marking the transition. Sound simply continues, following the structure that has formed to receive it. Even during deep rest, the ear canal remains active. It carries sound inward, whether the cat is alert, drowsy, or asleep. Listening continues without interruption. You might notice this if a cat is sleeping nearby. Their body remains still, their breathing slow and even. Yet the ear canal continues to pass sound along, allowing awareness to remain gently open. This constant readiness supports a sense of safety. The cat doesn't need to wake fully to remain aware of its surroundings. Sound can be sensed long before movement is required. As sound reaches the end of the ear canal, it approaches the eardrum, a thin surface that responds to the slightest vibration. Here, the journey changes from traveling air to gentle motion. In the next section, we'll pause at that moment. We'll explore how sound meets the eardrum and how vibration begins its transformation into something the inner ear can receive. For now, you can rest with the image of sound moving inward, from open air, through a quiet passage, carried steadily towards stillness. At the end of the ear canal, sound meets a surface that feels almost invisible in its lightness. This surface is the eardrum, a thin membrane stretched delicately across the entrance to the inner spaces of the ear. It rests in quiet balance, neither tense nor loose, simply present. The eardrum does not search for sound. It remains open to whatever arrives. When sound reaches it, the air inside the ear canal shifts, and the membrane responds by moving with that shift. The movement is small, measured, a soft inward bend followed by an equally gentle return. Each sound creates its own pattern of motion. A steady hum produces a smooth, even rhythm. A brief noise creates a short ripple that fades quickly. A layered sound carries multiple movements at once, overlapping softly without confusion. The eardrum follows every change with ease. This responsiveness comes from its structure. The membrane is thin enough to move freely, yet strong enough to remain stable. It bends and relaxes repeatedly, maintaining its shape while allowing vibration to pass through. Sound, at this point, transforms. What once traveled through open air now becomes motion within the body. The eardrum serves as the place where that transition happens quietly and continuously. There is no pause or interruption in this process. Sound arrives, movement follows, and motion carries onward. Each cycle completes itself before the next begins. If you imagine a still pond at dawn, the eardrum resembles the surface of that water. A leaf touches it. Ripples spread gently. The surface settles again. Another leaf arrives. Another pattern forms. The water remains calm throughout. The eardrum behaves in much the same way. It allows motion to appear, move outward, and fade without holding on to any single vibration. This quality preserves the character of sound. Subtle differences in timing and intensity remain intact as motion passes through. Quiet sounds create delicate movements. Stronger sounds create broader ones. Everything stays in proportion. For cats, this sensitivity supports their ability to notice fine details. Tiny variations in vibration can carry meaning. A small change in rhythm, a slight shift in texture, a sound arriving from a familiar place. All of this information moves through the eardrum as gentle motion. The membrane also provides a sense of cushioning. By moving with vibration rather than resisting it, the eardrum absorbs energy smoothly. This keeps the deeper parts of the ear comfortable and protected. allowing hearing to remain steady over time. The movement of the eardrum carries no urgency. It responds without effort. It returns to rest naturally after each vibration passes. For a cat resting in a quiet space, this process continues without interruption. The body may be fully relaxed, muscles loose, breathing slow and regular, and still the eardrum moves. It responds to the softest sounds in the environment: a distant footstep, air moving through a room, a faint sound passing through walls. These vibrations reach the membrane, create motion, and move onward, all without drawing the cat out of rest. This continuity supports a deep sense of safety. Awareness remains gently present even as the body settles more fully. There is no need for alertness or readiness. Listening flows alongside rest. You may recognize this feeling in yourself. As you lie quietly, sounds may still reach you. Some become part of the background. Others pass through awareness briefly and fade. Your body remains at ease. The eardrum functions in a similar way. It receives sound. It moves with it. It allows the motion to pass on. There is no accumulation, no lingering tension. Each vibration completes its cycle and releases. Over time, this steady rhythm creates a sense of continuity. Listening becomes something that simply happens without effort or intention. The membrane surface remains responsive without becoming overstimulated. It maintains its balance across countless movements, hour after hour, day after day. This quiet reliability supports the cat's natural rhythm of rest and awareness. Sound remains present as a background element rather than a demand. As motion leaves the eardrum, it carries its rhythm inward, now as physical movement rather than shifting air. The journey continues deeper, following a path shaped to receive it with the same care and steadiness. For now, it's enough to stay with this image: a thin membrane, moving softly, responding and releasing. Each vibration arrives. Each motion completes itself. Everything settles again. You can allow that rhythm to fade into the background, just as the eardrum does, supporting a quiet sense of ease that continues on its own. Beyond the gentle movement of the eardrum, vibration continues inward, entering a small, quiet space known as the middle ear. This space feels almost hidden, tucked safely behind the eardrum, holding some of the smallest and most delicate structures involved in hearing. Inside this space rests a tiny chain of bones, 3 in total, each one light, precise, and carefully positioned. They are often called the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. Their names come from familiar shapes, though in reality, they are much smaller and more refined than anything used by human hands. These bones do not sit still. They move gently, responding to every motion passed to them from the eardrum. When the eardrum bends inward, the first bone receives that movement. It tips forward slightly, transferring motion to the next bone in the chain. That movement continues onward, flowing from one tiny structure to the next. The chain works as a single unit. Each bone supports the others. No part moves alone. This arrangement allows vibration to be carried forward smoothly, without losing its shape or rhythm. The movement remains faithful to the sound that began it. Here, something important happens. The vibration becomes stronger, yet still gentle. This strengthening does not feel forceful. It feels refined. The bones act like careful guides, focusing motion so it can continue its journey inward. They don't add noise. They don't change the sound. They simply prepare it. The middle ear exists to support clarity. It takes the soft movement from the eardrum and carries it forward with slightly more precision, allowing even delicate sounds to remain intact. The size of these bones matters. Their smallness allows them to respond quickly and lightly. Each movement is controlled and balanced, avoiding any sense of strain. For cats, this refinement supports their sensitivity to quiet sounds. Tiny vibrations can move through this chain without being lost or blurred. A faint rustle, a distant sound, a subtle shift in the environment. All of it can travel through the middle ear smoothly, strengthened just enough to continue. The motion here remains rhythmic and steady. As the eardrum moves inward and outward, the bones follow in time, creating a soft oscillation that repeats with every sound. There is no pause in this process. Sound flows through the middle ear continuously, carried forward by this delicate mechanical chain. If you imagine the movement, it might feel like watching something suspended in water. Each motion is slow, measured, and fluid. Nothing jerks or snaps. Everything responds gently. The bones themselves are held in place by tiny connections that allow movement while maintaining stability. This balance ensures that vibration remains controlled, never overwhelming the inner structures that follow. The middle ear also creates a bridge between two very different environments. On one side is air carrying sound waves. On the other side is fluid, waiting to receive motion. The bones help guide vibration across this boundary. They prepare sound to move from air into fluid, smoothing the transition so it feels continuous rather than abrupt. This transition is quiet and seamless. There is no sharp change or sudden shift. Sound simply continues inward, carried along by motion. For a resting cat, this entire process unfolds without awareness. The body remains relaxed. The breath stays slow and even. Listening continues in the background, supported by these tiny structures doing their work. Even during sleep, the middle ear remains active. The bones continue to move gently, carrying vibration inward without waking the body. This constant readiness supports a feeling of safety. Sound can be sensed without demanding attention. Awareness remains present without effort. The refinement that happens here allows cats to notice subtle differences in sound, a change in distance, a variation in rhythm, a familiar sound arriving from an unexpected place. All of these details pass through the middle ear quietly, preserved by the delicate motion of the bones. Nothing lingers. Each vibration completes its cycle, then releases. The chain returns to rest, ready for the next movement. This rhythm continues endlessly, supporting hearing as a calm, ongoing process, rather than a series of events. You might imagine these bones moving slowly, like a quiet pendulum, back and forth, always returning to balance. There is something soothing in that repetition, a steady motion that never demands attention. As vibration leaves the final bone in the chain, it carries its refined movement forward, ready to enter a new environment where motion will become something more than movement alone. For now, it's enough to rest with this image. 3 tiny bones, moving gently, strengthening sound without force. motion continues inward, smooth and unbroken, as the quiet work of listening carries on. As vibration leaves the final bone of the middle ear, it arrives at a threshold. Here, motion passes from a space filled with air into a space filled with fluid. This transition happens quietly, without any sense of disruption. The inner ear is a calm, enclosed world. It's made up of small chambers filled with fluid, carefully shaped to receive motion and guide it forward. These chambers sit deep within the head, protected and still, waiting for vibration to arrive. When the refined motion reaches this space, it no longer moves through air. Instead, it begins to travel through fluid, where movement slows and spreads gently. This change creates a different kind of sensation, softer and more continuous. The fluid responds to motion by flowing. Each vibration sends a small wave through it, similar to the way water moves when something touches its surface. The movement remains smooth, controlled, and steady. This shift into fluid marks an important moment in hearing. Sound begins to transform from simple motion into something the body can interpret more deeply. The inner ear prepares vibration to become sensation. One of the most recognizable shapes within the inner ear is the cochlea. It curves inward in a slow spiral, forming a structure that resembles a small coiled shell. This spiral shape allows sound to be processed gradually, along a path rather than all at once. As vibration enters the cochlea, it travels through the fluid inside, moving along the length of the spiral. Different parts of the spiral respond to different qualities of sound, allowing details to unfold naturally as motion moves forward. The movement through the cochlea is gentle and continuous. There are no sudden stops or changes. Each wave flows smoothly, guided by the curved walls of the spiral. The fluid inside the cochlea carries vibration forward at its own pace. It slows the motion just enough to allow the next stage of sensing to begin. This pacing supports clarity, ensuring that sound remains organized and balanced. For cats, this inner structure plays a role in their ability to hear a wide range of sounds. High and low tones move through the spiral differently, each finding its place along the path. The inner ear does not rush this process. Motion unfolds gradually, shaped by the spiral and the fluid it contains. Each vibration completes its journey before the next begins. This layered movement helps preserve detail. Subtle differences in sound remain distinct as they travel deeper. Nothing overlaps in a way that feels chaotic. The fluid-filled chambers of the inner ear also contribute to a sense of smoothness. Fluid resists sudden changes, creating a natural dampening effect. This keeps vibration from feeling harsh or overwhelming. For a resting cat, this environment supports comfort. Sound arrives as a flowing sensation rather than a sharp signal. Awareness remains steady and calm. Even during sleep, the inner ear remains receptive. Fluid continues to move gently in response to vibration. Listening carries on quietly beneath rest. You might imagine this space as a slow-moving current, deep and still. Sound enters, creates a ripple, and the ripple travels along a curved path before settling. There is something naturally soothing about this movement. It has a rhythm that feels continuous rather than segmented. Each wave rises, moves, and fades. The spiral shape of the cochlea encourages this sense of flow. It allows vibration to spread gradually, giving each part proof space to respond in its own time. This structure also supports precision. As vibration moves through the spiral, it interacts with different regions in subtle ways. Each region responds to specific qualities of sound, helping to separate tones naturally. The inner ear acts as a place of translation. Here, motion prepares to become information. The body begins to sense not just that sound exists, but what kind of sound it is. This transition remains gentle. Nothing demands attention. Nothing pulls the body out of rest. For cats, this system allows listening to remain part of a relaxed state. Awareness does not require tension. Sound flows inward quietly, carried by fluid and shaped by form. As vibration continues its journey, it moves toward structures even smaller and more delicate, where motion will begin to create the first signals the body can recognize. For now, you can rest with the image of fluid moving in a spiral. A slow curve, a gentle wave. Sound continues inward, becoming something softer and more refined with each step, supporting a steady sense of calm that remains present without effort. Deep within the fluid-filled spiral of the inner ear, sound reaches one of the smallest and most delicate stages of its journey. Here, vibration begins to interact with structures so fine they are measured in microscopic detail. Along the inner surface of the cochlea rests a carefully arranged layer of sensory cells. These are known as hair cells, named for the tiny hair-like projections that extend from their surface. Each of these hair-like structures is incredibly small. They move easily. They respond to the slightest motion in the surrounding fluid. As vibration travels through the fluid of the cochlea, it creates gentle waves. These waves cause the fluid to shift, and that movement bends the hair-like projections back and forth. The motion is subtle. There is no force involved. Each bend is small and precise, matching the rhythm and intensity of the vibration passing through. When a hair cell bends, something important begins to happen. The movement triggers a quiet change inside the cell itself. A signal forms, beginning its journey inward. The hair cells are arranged carefully along the spiral of the cochlea. Different regions respond to different qualities of sound. Some hair cells respond more readily to higher tones. Others respond to lower tones. This organization allows sound to be separated naturally as it moves through the inner ear. Instead of arriving as a single, blended sensation, sound unfolds into layers of detail. Each hair cell responds only to the movement it is tuned for. It bends. It returns. It waits for the next wave. This bending and returning creates a steady rhythm. Motion arrives, triggers a response, and then settles. The cell resets quietly, ready to respond again. This process does not involve thought or interpretation. It happens automatically, without effort. The body responds before awareness ever becomes involved. For cats, this level of sensitivity supports their ability to detect very quiet sounds. Even a small movement in the environment can create enough fluid motion to bend these tiny structures. A faint rustle in grass, a soft movement behind a wall, a sound carried lightly through the air. All of these can reach the hair cells and create a response. The signals created by the hair cells are not loud or dramatic. They are subtle electrical changes, beginning quietly and steadily. Each signal carries information about the sound that caused it. The timing of the signal, the strength of the response, the location along the cochlea. Together, these details begin to form a pattern the body can recognize. This stage of hearing feels very distant from the outside world. There is no air here, no open space, only fluid, motion, and tiny structures responding gently. The hair cells themselves remain delicate and precise. They bend and return again and again, maintaining their shape and sensitivity over countless cycles. For a resting cat, this process continues uninterrupted. Even when the body is still, even when sleep deepens, these cells continue to respond quietly to sound. Listening does not require wakefulness. It flows beneath rest. You might imagine this space as a field of tall grass underwater. A slow current moves through it. The grass bends slightly, then rises again as the water passes. Nothing breaks, nothing rushes. Movement remains calm and continuous. The hair cells respond in much the same way. They move with the flow of vibration, then return to stillness. This repeated motion allows sound to be transformed into something the body can carry forward. Vibration becomes signal. Motion becomes information. The transition happens quietly, without any sudden shift. There is no moment where sound stops and signal begins. One flows into the other seamlessly. For cats, this gentle transformation supports a calm relationship with sound. Awareness remains open without feeling overwhelmed. Details are noticed without strain. As the signals form, they prepare to travel onward, moving away from the fluid-filled spiral and toward pathways that lead deeper into the nervous system. For now, it's enough to rest with this image. Tiny hair-like structures, bending softly, returning to stillness. Each movement creates a quiet signal. Each signal begins its journey inward, and all of it happens with a steadiness that supports rest rather than interrupting it. As the quiet signals form deep within the inner ear, they begin a new kind of journey. Motion has already softened into signal. Now that signal starts to travel. Leaving the inner ear, these signals move into a pathway designed for communication rather than movement. This pathway is made of nerve fibers, fine and organized, extending gently from the cochlea toward the brain. Each fiber carries information with care. There is no rush. Signals travel steadily, guided along a route shaped for clarity and balance. This pathway is often called the auditory nerve. It gathers the signals created by countless hair cells and carries them onward, keeping their timing and detail intact. What travels here is no longer vibration. It is information shaped by rhythm, intensity, and pattern. Each signal reflects the sound that began the process, translated into a form the brain can receive. The movement along the nerve feels quiet and continuous. Signals pass like soft pulses, flowing forward in sequence. One follows another, creating a gentle stream rather than a burst. For cats, this steady flow supports their ability to remain calm while listening. Information arrives smoothly without overwhelming the system. Awareness grows naturally from the signals as they arrive. As the signals move along the nerve, they remain organized. Those created by higher tones travel together. Those created by lower tones follow their own paths. The structure preserves separation, allowing detail to remain clear. This organization helps the brain understand sound without confusion. Different qualities of sound stay distinct, even as they travel together. The nerve fibers themselves are insulated and protected, ensuring that signals remain stable as they move. This protection supports consistency, allowing sound to be perceived reliably across time. For a resting cat, this pathway remains quietly active. Even during sleep, signals continue to travel inward, maintaining a gentle connection between the environment and the brain. This does not disturb rest. It supports a sense of orientation. Awareness remains present without pulling attention forward. As signals reach the brain, they arrive gradually. There is no single moment where sound suddenly becomes awareness. Instead, perception unfolds softly. The brain receives these signals and begins to recognize patterns. Timing, intensity, frequency. From these elements, sound takes shape. This recognition happens below conscious thought. The cat does not need to analyze what it hears. The brain simply receives and integrates. A familiar sound may pass through without response. An unfamiliar sound may create a slight shift in awareness. Both arrive through the same quiet process. The brain itself remains calm throughout. There is no strain involved in receiving sound. The system is designed for ease. You might imagine this process as light entering a dim room. It spreads gradually. Details emerge slowly. Nothing arrives all at once. Sound awareness forms in a similar way. Signals arrive. Patterns settle. Perception takes shape gently. For cats, this gentle arrival supports their ability to stay relaxed while remaining aware of their surroundings. There is no need for vigilance. Listening remains part of rest. Even as the brain receives sound, the body stays at ease. Muscles remain loose. Breathing continues at its own pace. There is no urgency to respond. This balance allows cats to live comfortably within sound. They are connected to the world without being pulled by it. As signals continue to arrive, the brain integrates them with other senses. Sight, smell, memory. Together, these form a quiet understanding of the environment. A sound becomes part of a larger picture rather than standing alone. It blends into context, finding its place naturally. For a cat resting nearby, this entire process unfolds silently and continuously. Sound enters. Signal travels. Awareness forms. All of it happens beneath the surface of rest. You may notice something similar as you relax. Sounds still reach you. Your brain still receives them. Yet your body remains settled. There is no need to respond. Listening continues quietly in the background. This is how sound becomes awareness. Through gentle signals, through steady pathways, through a system designed to support calm rather than disrupt it. You can allow this image to remain soft. Signals moving inward, awareness forming slowly, everything continuing without effort, supporting rest as it deepens naturally. Once sound has become awareness, it reveals something quietly remarkable. Cats do not hear the same narrow band of sound that humans do. Their listening opens onto a wider landscape, filled with tones that stretch both lower and higher than what people typically notice. This wider range does not feel dramatic or overwhelming to a cat. It simply exists as part of the world they live inside. Low tones arrive as slow, steady movements. They carry weight and presence, spreading gently through space. High tones arrive more lightly, with fine detail and sharp clarity. Cats are able to sense both. Their ears, inner structures, and neural pathways are tuned to receive a broad spectrum of sound. This allows them to notice subtle differences that pass unnoticed elsewhere. High-frequency sounds, especially, stand out in the feline world. Very small movements create tones that fall into this range. The faint squeak of a small animal, the quick rustle of something moving just out of sight. These sounds exist at frequencies far above what human ears can detect. For a cat, they arrive clearly, carried inward through the same calm process of listening. Low-frequency sounds also play a role. These tones move more slowly, creating a sense of space and distance. They can travel through walls and floors, arriving as a gentle vibration rather than a sharp sound. Cats sense these low tones as part of the environment. They help define where things are. They contribute to the overall texture of a space. This wide range creates a layered soundscape. Different frequencies arrive together, each occupying its own place. Nothing feels crowded or confused. The inner ear separates these frequencies naturally. Higher tones activate certain pathways. Lower tones activate others. Each finds its place within the listening system. This separation supports clarity. Sound remains organized even when many tones are present at once. For cats, this means the world feels rich with information without feeling noisy. Each sound carries meaning based on its pitch, rhythm, and location. A familiar high-pitched sound may signal something expected. A low, steady tone may simply remain in the background. Listening remains fluid and calm. The ability to hear such a wide range developed over time. Cats evolved in environments where noticing small, high-frequency sounds mattered. These sounds often signaled movement nearby, carrying information about the presence of small animals or changes in the environment. That sensitivity remains present today, even in quiet domestic spaces. A cat resting by a window may hear sounds far beyond what the room reveals. Distant birds, small movements in the grass, high-pitched noises carried lightly through the air. All of these become part of the listening experience, layered gently into awareness. At the same time, cats adapt easily to familiar sounds within the home. Appliances, soft voices, distant traffic. These sounds occupy lower or mid-range frequencies and often become part of the background. The wide hearing range allows cats to notice what changes without being overwhelmed by what stays the same. High-frequency sensitivity does not create constant alertness. It creates clarity. Quiet sounds remain distinct. Important changes stand out gently. The system remains balanced. For a resting cat, this wide soundscape feels natural and steady. Listening does not require effort. Awareness expands to include more of the world without tension. You might imagine the soundscape as a wide horizon. Some sounds are close and detailed. Others stretch far into the distance. All of them coexist peacefully. As you rest, you may notice your own awareness soften in a similar way. Sounds around you may seem to blend into the background. Some stand out briefly, then fade. There is no need to follow them. Cats live comfortably within this wide range of sound. Their hearing allows them to remain connected to their environment without being pulled by it. High tones pass through awareness. Low tones settle beneath it. Together, they form a complete picture. This broad sensitivity supports a calm relationship with the world. Nothing needs to be filtered out forcefully. Everything finds its place naturally. You can allow this idea to rest alongside you. A wide field of sound, layers unfolding gently, awareness remaining open, steady, and at ease. The world continues to sound around you, and listening continues quietly, without demand, as rest deepens on its own. Within the wide field of sound that cats live inside, some sounds carry a special kind of clarity. They do not arrive loudly or forcefully. They arrive gently, almost unnoticed. Yet they stand out all the same. These are quiet sounds, small movements, subtle shifts in the environment, a blade of grass brushing against another, a tiny footstep across a distant surface, the soft flutter of wings far beyond a window. For a cat, these sounds are clear and distinct. They rise softly above the background without demanding attention. They don't interrupt rest. They simply become noticeable. This sensitivity comes from the careful way a cat's hearing system is tuned. Earlier stages of hearing have already shaped sound with precision. By the time sound becomes awareness, small details remain intact. Quiet sounds often carry high-frequency elements. These elements travel lightly through the air and are picked up easily by a cat's ears. They arrive with a sharpness that feels clean rather than intense. A sound like this may cause an ear to turn slightly. The movement is small, measured, almost automatic. The rest of the body remains still. This response does not come from alertness or tension. It comes from clarity. The sound is simply recognized. Cats do not treat every quiet sound as important. Many pass through awareness and fade without response. Only those that differ from the familiar background stand out briefly. This ability to notice change without overreacting helps maintain calm. The world remains understandable without feeling unpredictable. In a quiet home, this might include the subtle shift of air when someone moves in another room, a soft click from a distant surface, the faint sound of fabric brushing against itself. These sounds are heard clearly, then released. Outdoors, the same sensitivity allows cats to notice movement far beyond their immediate surroundings. Small animals moving through grass, leaves shifting in a light breeze, insects moving just out of sight. Each sound arrives with its own texture. Some feel close, others feel distant. All are placed gently within awareness. The distinction between background sound and standout sound happens naturally. There is no effort involved. The hearing system adjusts automatically, highlighting what is different without overwhelming the senses. This process feels smooth and balanced. Quiet sounds are noticed. Familiar sounds remain part of the background. For cats, this balance supports comfort. They remain aware of their surroundings while staying relaxed. There is no need to constantly scan or respond. You may have noticed this when watching a resting cat. They appear asleep, yet a soft sound causes a brief movement of an ear. After a moment, stillness returns. Listening continues beneath rest. This ability to sense subtle sound changes also supports safety. important changes in the environment can be detected early, without needing to be loud or abrupt. At the same time, the system does not keep the body in a state of readiness. Awareness remains light and flexible. Quiet sounds do not create stress, they create information. This gentle sensitivity allows cats to live comfortably within sound, rather than being pulled by it. You might notice a similar experience as you relax. A sound stands out briefly. You register it. Then it fades into the background again. Your body remains at ease. Cats experience this continuously. Sound moves in and out of awareness without demanding action. This relationship with sound allows rest to remain deep and uninterrupted. Listening supports relaxation rather than interrupting it. The world does not need to become silent for rest to happen. It simply needs to remain predictable and gentle. Quiet sounds that stand out do so briefly, then settle back into the wider soundscape. You can let this idea remain with you. Subtle sounds, brief awareness, a return to calm. Everything continues in balance, allowing rest to deepen naturally as listening carries on quietly in the background. Sound does more than arrive. It carries a sense of place. For cats, hearing is not only about noticing that a sound exists, but about understanding where it comes from, how far away it is, and how it fits into the surrounding space. This understanding forms quietly and continuously, without effort or urgency. As sound reaches both ears, it rarely arrives at the exact same moment. One ear receives it just slightly before the other. The difference is very small, often measured in tiny fractions of time, yet it carries meaning. These small differences help shape direction. A sound arriving from the left reaches the left ear first, then the right. A sound from behind follows a different path. A sound from above carries its own pattern. The cat's hearing system notices these timing differences naturally. There is no calculation involved. The information simply settles into awareness. Loudness also plays a role. A sound closer to one ear may feel slightly fuller or stronger on that side. A sound farther away feels lighter, thinner, more distant. Together, timing and intensity create a quiet sense of location. This process is supported by the independent movement of the ears. As a sound arrives, one ear may angle toward it, while the other remains open to the wider space. These small adjustments help refine direction without requiring the head or body to move. The movements are subtle. An ear turns a few degrees, then it rests. Nothing feels rushed. As sound continues, the ears may make tiny corrections. A slight tilt, a gentle return. Each movement adds a little more clarity to the map forming within awareness. The head may also shift, slowly and minimally, aligning the ears with the sound. This alignment helps confirm direction, allowing sound to feel anchored within space rather than floating. For cats, this creates a three-dimensional sense of hearing. Sound does not arrive as a flat experience. It carries depth. Near sounds feel close and clear. Far sounds feel distant and softened. Sounds behind walls or objects feel muted and indirect. All of this information blends together quietly. In a familiar environment, this mapping happens almost automatically. A cat resting in a room already knows the shape of the space. Sound simply confirms what is already understood. A noise from the kitchen carries a familiar distance. A sound from the hallway feels farther away. A sound from above may feel faint and hollow. Each location has its own acoustic signature. The surfaces within a space also shape sound. Hard surfaces reflect sound, allowing it to travel farther. Soft surfaces absorb sound, creating a sense of closeness and quiet. Cats sense these differences easily. A room with carpets and curtains feels different from one with bare floors and walls. Sound moves differently through each, helping define the boundaries of the space. Echoes, even very subtle ones, contribute to this sense of location. A sound that returns quickly feels close. A sound that lingers feels more open and distant. These reflections help fill in the map. For a resting cat, this process happens continuously, without pulling attention forward. The body remains relaxed. The ears make small adjustments. Awareness stays open. Listening becomes a form of orientation rather than alertness. This quiet mapping allows cats to feel secure. They know where they are in relation to the sounds around them. Nothing feels disembodied or confusing. You may notice this when a cat hears a sound and turns its ears before turning its head. The ears gather information first. Only if needed does the body follow. Often, no movement follows at all. The sound is located. Understanding forms. Stillness remains. This ability also allows cats to remain calm during rest. They do not need to wake fully to understand their surroundings. Sound can be placed within space without effort. A door closing softly in another room is recognized as distant. Footsteps passing outside are understood as separate from the immediate space. The world remains predictable. This predictability supports deeper rest. You might experience something similar as you relax. A sound reaches you. You know where it came from without needing to think about it. Your body remains still. Cats live in this state continuously. Sound arrives already placed within space. This spatial awareness helps quiet sounds stand out when they need to. A sound that appears in an unexpected location may register briefly. Then it settles. The system remains balanced. There is no constant scanning or vigilance. Just a steady awareness of where things are. You can rest with this idea. Sound arriving gently, finding its place. The space around you remaining known and calm. Everything stays oriented. Nothing feels uncertain. Listening continues quietly, mapping the world without effort, allowing rest to deepen while awareness remains softly present. Over time, sound becomes something steady. It settles into daily life and begins to feel predictable, almost invisible in its presence. For cats, familiarity shapes how sound is experienced. Repeated sounds lose their edges and soften into the background, becoming part of the environment rather than something that draws attention. A clock ticking across a room, the low hum of an appliance, air moving gently through a vent. These sounds repeat in the same way, day after day. Their rhythm stays consistent. Their tone remains unchanged. Because of this repetition, the sounds become familiar. They blend into the space and stop standing out. This familiarity creates calm. When a sound follows a known pattern, it carries reassurance. It signals that the environment remains stable and unchanged. Nothing unexpected is happening. For cats, this predictability allows rest to deepen. The body relaxes more fully when the soundscape feels known. Familiar sounds do not require monitoring. They pass through awareness lightly, then fade into the background again. This does not mean they disappear completely. They remain present, woven into the fabric of the environment. They simply stop demanding notice. A cat, resting in a familiar room, hears these sounds continuously. They arrive, repeat, and continue on without interruption. Awareness acknowledges them briefly, then releases them. This release happens naturally. There is no effort involved. The nervous system recognizes the pattern and allows it to settle. Repetition plays an important role here. When a sound repeats in the same way, it becomes easier to place. Its timing is known. Its location is familiar. Each repetition reinforces the sense that the environment is safe. In this way, sound becomes part of a quiet rhythm that supports comfort rather than disrupting it. Cats live closely attuned to these rhythms. They notice when a familiar sound changes or stops. They also notice when a new sound appears. But as long as sounds remain consistent, they remain part of the background. This balance allows cats to stay relaxed without losing awareness. Familiar sounds remain present as gentle reassurance, while unfamiliar sounds may stand out briefly before settling. In a quiet home, this process unfolds constantly. A refrigerator cycles on and off. A clock marks time steadily. Footsteps follow familiar paths. Over time, these sounds become markers of normalcy. They define what home sounds like. For a cat, these familiar sounds help shape a sense of place. They anchor awareness to the environment, reinforcing the feeling of being settled and secure. This is why sudden changes in sound can feel noticeable. When a familiar sound stops unexpectedly, awareness may shift briefly. The change stands out because it breaks the pattern. Once the new pattern becomes familiar, calm returns. This adaptability allows cats to adjust smoothly to their environment. New sounds gradually become familiar through repetition. What once stood out begins to fade. Familiarity does not dull perception. It refines it. By allowing repeated sounds to fade into the background, the hearing system remains open to noticing meaningful changes without becoming overstimulated. This selective softness supports rest. The world remains audible without feeling intrusive. You might notice this yourself as you relax. At first, a sound may catch your attention. After a while, it fades into the background. Your body remains calm. Cats experience this continuously. Their awareness flows easily between noticing and releasing. Sound familiarity also supports emotional neutrality. Sounds are experienced without judgment. They are neither good nor bad. They simply exist. This neutrality allows cats to live comfortably within sound, rather than reacting to it emotionally. A steady hum does not create irritation. A repetitive noise does not cause tension. It simply becomes part of the environment. This calm relationship with sound allows rest to deepen naturally. The body settles more fully when the soundscape feels known. For cats, this familiarity supports long periods of rest and sleep. Listening continues quietly without pulling awareness forward. You can let this idea rest with you. familiar sounds surrounding you, repeating gently, offering reassurance through consistency. The world continues to sound as it always has. Nothing needs attention. Everything remains steady. As familiarity settles in, sound becomes less something to notice and more something to rest within, supporting a sense of ease that remains quietly present as rest deepens on its own. Among all the sounds that pass through a cat's world, voices carry a particular texture. They move differently than other sounds. They hold rhythm, variation, and emotional color. For cats, voices are not understood through words. They are understood through patterns. Pitch rises and falls. Tone softens or sharpens. Cadence unfolds over time. These elements arrive together, forming a sound that feels familiar or unfamiliar long before it carries any meaning. A cat living with people hears voices every day. They arrive from nearby rooms. They drift through hallways. They pass gently through shared spaces. Over time, certain voices become known. This recognition does not happen all at once. It forms gradually, shaped by repetition and context. A familiar voice begins to feel predictable. Its rhythm becomes recognizable. Its presence feels expected. For a cat, this familiarity creates ease. A known voice does not demand attention. It blends into the background, carrying reassurance rather than urgency. An unfamiliar voice may feel different. Its rhythm may not match what the cat expects. Its tone may stand out briefly before settling. This distinction happens quietly. There is no alarm, just a moment of noticing. Cats are especially sensitive to how voices are used rather than what is said. A calm, gentle tone feels steady and safe. A sharper or more abrupt tone may create a brief shift in awareness. These reactions remain subtle. An ear may turn slightly. The body may pause. Then stillness returns. The emotional color of a voice matters. Cats sense changes in tone that reflect mood or intention. A relaxed voice carries softness. An agitated voice carries tension. These differences are noticed without interpretation. The sound simply arrives with a particular quality. This sensitivity allows cats to remain connected to the emotional atmosphere of their environment without becoming reactive. A familiar person speaking softly nearby may create a sense of comfort. The sound feels predictable and steady. It blends into the rhythm of the space. A louder or sharper voice may stand out briefly, then fade as the soundscape returns to normal. For cats, voices are part of the environment rather than the center of it. They do not demand focus. They do not require response. Listening remains passive and calm. Cats also tend to recognize when a voice is directed toward them. Changes in pitch, rhythm, and tone often accompany attention. These cues may stand out gently. A name spoken softly, a familiar cadence, a sound shaped by intention. The recognition is subtle. The cat may look up briefly, or simply register the sound and remain at rest. There is no obligation to respond. This relationship with voices supports emotional neutrality. Sounds are received without pressure. They are allowed to exist as part of the background unless something changes. Over time, voices become woven into the fabric of daily life. They mark time. They signal presence. They offer continuity. A cat resting nearby may hear a familiar voice moving through the home. The sound confirms that the environment remains stable. Nothing unexpected is happening. This reassurance allows the body to remain relaxed. Even when voices are present, rest can deepen. The sound does not interrupt. It supports a sense of being accompanied rather than alone. You may notice this when a cat chooses to sleep near people speaking softly. The voice becomes part of the ambient soundscape. It carries warmth without demand. For cats, recognition does not require attention. Awareness remains light and flexible. Voices pass through awareness the same way other familiar sounds do. They arrive, they repeat, they fade. This gentle relationship with human sound allows cats to live comfortably alongside people. They share space without needing constant engagement. Sound becomes connection without intrusion. You can let this idea rest with you. A familiar voice nearby. Soft rhythm. Gentle presence. The sound does not ask anything of you. It simply exists, steady and known. As rest deepens, voices become part of the quiet background of the moment, offering familiarity and reassurance, while awareness remains calm and at ease. As cats move through daily life, certain sounds begin to gather meaning, not through explanation or instruction, but through repetition and gentle consistency. A sound happens. Something follows. Over time, the connection settles. This is how association forms. For cats, sound often becomes meaningful when it reliably precedes an experience. The sound itself does not carry importance at first. It gains significance through what comes after. A container opening, a soft rustle of packaging, a familiar tap or click. When these sounds are followed by something consistent, they begin to stand out from the background. They do so quietly, without urgency. The sound does not command attention. It invites recognition. Over repeated experiences, the body begins to respond before thought ever enters. The ears notice. Awareness shifts slightly. The sound feels different from others. This difference comes from predictability. When a sound reliably leads to nourishment, comfort, or routine, it becomes familiar in a particular way. It holds anticipation rather than surprise. A cat hearing a familiar food container does not need to see what is happening. The sound itself carries enough information. It signals sequence rather than instruction. This process remains calm. There is no excitement required, just recognition. The sound becomes part of a pattern the body understands. Routine noises work the same way. Footsteps that appear at the same time each day. A door opening at a familiar hour. A gentle sound that marks the beginning or ending of an activity. Each repetition strengthens the association. Over time, these sounds settle into memory. They form a rhythm that helps structure the day. For cats, this rhythm provides comfort. It makes the environment feel reliable and known. The sound itself remains simple. It does not grow louder or sharper. It simply carries meaning through consistency. This allows cats to feel oriented in time as well as space. Certain sounds signal morning. Others signal evening. Some mark moments of transition. The body learns these signals without effort. When a familiar sound appears, awareness shifts gently. The ears may turn, the body may pause. Then everything continues naturally. There is no need for conscious anticipation. The sound does its work quietly. This kind of association does not create constant alertness. It creates ease. Because the sound is predictable, it does not feel disruptive. It feels like part of the environment's natural rhythm. In a calm home, many sounds carry this kind of meaning. They help define the flow of the day without requiring attention. A cat resting nearby may hear a familiar routine sound and simply acknowledge it. There is no rush to move, just a subtle awareness that something expected is happening. This relationship between sound and experience supports emotional balance. Nothing feels uncertain. The world remains understandable. Association also allows cats to remain relaxed even when new sounds appear. Familiar sounds anchor awareness. They provide context. When a new sound enters the environment, it is noticed briefly. Over time, if it repeats and leads to no change, it too becomes familiar. Meaning fades back into neutrality. This adaptability allows cats to live comfortably in changing environments. What begins as unfamiliar gradually becomes part of the background through repetition. Sound, in this way, becomes a quiet teacher. It shapes expectation without instruction. It guides awareness without pressure. For cats, this gentle learning supports a sense of safety. The environment feels consistent. Experiences unfold as expected. You may recognize this process in yourself. Certain sounds signal comfort. Others signal routine. They shape your awareness without demanding attention. Cats live inside this process continuously. Sound becomes meaning through association. Meaning becomes reassurance through repetition. And reassurance allows rest to deepen. A familiar sound arrives. It is recognized. Then it settles back into the background. Nothing needs to be done. The sound has already done its work, quietly reinforcing a sense of order and comfort that remains present as rest continues naturally. Sound carries more than information. It carries feeling. For cats, emotional tone is sensed through the shape and texture of sound, rather than through meaning or intention. The way a sound is delivered matters more than what it represents. A voice spoken softly moves differently through the air than one spoken sharply. Its edges feel smoother. Its rhythm feels slower. Its presence feels steady. Cats notice these differences without needing to interpret them. A calm sound tends to settle easily into the background. It blends with the rest of the environment, adding to the sense of stability. Awareness remains relaxed. A sharper sound carries a different texture. It arrives with quicker changes in volume or pitch. This difference may cause a brief shift in attention. The response remains small. An ear turns slightly. The body pauses for a moment. Then stillness returns. Cats do not label sounds as good or bad. They experience them as variations in energy and rhythm. Each sound arrives with its own emotional color. A gentle laugh, a soft sigh, a quiet voice moving through a room. These sounds feel smooth and predictable. They do not disrupt rest. They support it. A raised voice or sudden change in tone may feel less familiar. It stands out briefly because it differs from the surrounding pattern. Once the sound passes, calm returns. This sensitivity allows cats to remain attuned to the emotional atmosphere of their environment without becoming reactive. They sense shifts in tone the same way they sense shifts in light or movement, quietly, without urgency. For cats, emotional tone does not demand action. It provides information. This information settles into awareness gently, allowing the cat to remain oriented without tension. You may notice this when a cat responds differently to various tones of voice. A soft, steady tone may be met with continued relaxation. A sharper tone may cause a momentary pause. The reaction remains minimal. There is no need for heightened alertness. The body stays at ease. This balance supports emotional neutrality. Cats do not absorb emotional tone as stress. They register it as part of the environment. Sound passes through awareness, colored slightly by its tone, then fades. This process helps maintain calm even in environments where emotional tones vary throughout the day. A home may contain many moods: quiet conversation, laughter, brief tension, return to calm. Cats sense these shifts without becoming unsettled. They remain grounded in the larger rhythm of the environment. The predictability of return matters more than the brief change. When emotional tone remains within a familiar range, sound continues to feel safe. This allows cats to rest deeply, even when sound is present. Listening does not pull them out of comfort. You might notice this in yourself as well. A gentle tone feels soothing. A sharp tone may stand out briefly. Once the sound passes, your body settles again. Cats live inside this flow continuously. Emotional tone arrives. It is registered. It releases. Nothing lingers. This gentle processing prevents emotional overload. Sound remains informative without becoming invasive. For cats, this means the world feels emotionally navigable. They remain connected without feeling burdened by the emotional states of others. Awareness stays light. As rest deepens, emotional tone becomes less distinct. Sounds soften. Edges blur. Listening continues quietly, without interpretation or response. You can let this idea rest with you. Sound arriving with texture. Emotion passing through without weight. Everything settles naturally, supporting a sense of calm that remains present as rest continues, unobstructed and steady. As cats settle into rest, sound does not disappear. It changes its role. During rest, sound becomes a background presence rather than a point of focus. It remains part of the environment, offering continuity and reassurance without drawing attention. A resting cat lies still, body loose and comfortable. Breathing slows, muscles soften. Yet the world continues to sound quietly around them. A low hum from an appliance. Air moving through a room. The distant rhythm of life beyond the walls. These sounds do not interrupt rest, they support it. Low-level, consistent sound creates a sense of steadiness. When the soundscape remains predictable, the environment feels safe. Nothing requires immediate awareness. For cats, this predictability allows the body to settle more deeply. Listening continues, but it does so gently and relaxed. Background sound acts as a kind of reassurance. Its presence confirms that the surroundings remain unchanged. Everything is as expected. This is why complete silence can sometimes feel unfamiliar. In natural environments, Sound rarely vanishes entirely. There is always some movement in the air, some distant activity. Cats evolved in these soundscapes. Rest happened alongside sound, not in its absence. In a home, low-level sounds take on this role. They fill the space softly, creating a consistent auditory backdrop. A clock ticking steadily, a fan turning slowly, muted conversation drifting from another room. These sounds repeat without variation. Their rhythm remains stable. Because of this, the hearing system allows them to fade into the background. They remain present, but no longer stand out. This fading supports rest. Awareness remains open, but attention loosens. A cat sleeping nearby may still twitch an ear occasionally. A distant sound may register briefly. Then stillness returns. Listening continues beneath sleep, maintaining a gentle connection to the environment. This connection supports safety. The cat does not need to wake fully to sense change. Sound can be registered quietly, allowing rest to continue unless movement is needed. This balance allows cats to sleep deeply while remaining aware enough to respond if necessary. Sound during rest becomes a soft boundary between sleep and wakefulness. It marks continuity rather than interruption. You might notice this in yourself as well. As you rest, certain sounds remain present. They do not pull you awake. They simply exist. A steady hum, a distant noise, a familiar rhythm. These sounds can even feel comforting. They signal that the world continues safely around you. Cats experience this naturally. Their hearing remains open, but attention is relaxed. This relaxed listening allows rest to deepen without disconnecting completely from the environment. When sound changes suddenly, awareness may rise briefly. An ear may move. The body may shift slightly. If the sound resolves quickly, rest resumes without difficulty. This fluid movement between awareness and rest keeps the nervous system balanced. Sound does not become a source of stress. It becomes part of the resting state. For cats, rest is not an absence of sensation. It is a state where sensation remains gentle and predictable. Sound contributes to this state by providing continuity. The world remains audible, but softly. You can let this idea settle alongside you. Background sound continuing, low and steady. There is no need to focus on it. It supports rest simply by being there. As awareness drifts, sound becomes less distinct. Edges soften, rhythms blur. Listening continues quietly, allowing sleep to deepen while the environment remains gently present, steady, and reassuring. Even in the calmest spaces, sound is never completely still. Sometimes it changes suddenly. A sharp noise, a brief interruption, a sound that rises above the steady background without warning. For cats, these moments are part of the natural rhythm of listening. They do not signal danger on their own. They simply represent change. When a sudden sound appears, the body responds quickly and lightly. An ear flicks. The head may lift slightly. Awareness sharpens for a moment. This response is brief and contained. There is no lingering tension, no extended alertness. Just a short adjustment as the sound is registered and placed. The hearing system is designed to notice contrast. A sound that differs in volume, pitch, or timing stands out, because it breaks the existing pattern. That difference is enough to draw awareness forward for a moment. Once the sound passes, the system resets. Recovery happens naturally. The ears return to their resting position. Muscles soften again. Breathing remains steady. Rest resumes without effort. This ability to recover quickly is an important part of how cats remain calm in a changing world. They acknowledge disruption without carrying it forward. A sudden sound does not become a story. It does not linger as anticipation. It arrives, is noticed, and then releases. You may have seen this happen many times. A cat is resting. A loud noise occurs. The cat lifts its head, ears turning sharply toward the source. A few seconds pass. Nothing else happens. The cat settles back into rest as if nothing occurred. This process reflects trust in the environment. The sound was evaluated quickly and found to require no further action. The body returns to stillness. This pattern prevents exhaustion. If every sound created prolonged alertness, rest would never deepen. Instead, the system allows brief awareness followed by release. Sudden sounds are treated as information, not threat. Even louder interruptions follow this same pattern. A dropped object. A door closing unexpectedly. A brief burst of noise from outside. The response remains measured. Awareness rises. Placement occurs. Recovery follows. The speed of recovery matters more than the intensity of the initial response. Cats are built to return to calm quickly. This ability is supported by the earlier stages of hearing. Sound is shaped, mapped, and contextualized before it ever becomes emotion. By the time awareness responds, much of the work is already done. The system understands whether the sound is near or far, whether it repeats or resolves, whether it belongs to the familiar environment. If the sound does not persist, the body lets it go. This release is physical as well as mental. Muscles relax again. Posture softens. The body returns to rest. There is no holding on. This pattern supports deep sleep. Even during rest, sudden sounds can be acknowledged without pulling the cat fully awake. An ear may twitch, a whisker may move. Then sleep continues. This balance allows cats to remain responsive without being reactive. Awareness stays flexible. You might recognize this process in yourself. A sudden sound may catch your attention. Your body registers it. When nothing follows, you relax again. The moment passes. Cats live in this cycle continuously. Notice. Place, release. There is no need to stay alert longer than necessary. This approach to sound creates resilience. The world can change briefly without disturbing the deeper rhythm of rest. For cats, recovery is as important as awareness. The system is designed to return to stillness easily. As rest deepens, even sudden sounds may feel softer. Awareness rises briefly, then sinks again. The body trusts the environment enough to let go. You can let this idea settle with you. A sudden sound, a brief moment of noticing, a return to calm. Nothing lingers, nothing carries forward. Listening remains steady and balanced, allowing rest to continue naturally as sound comes and goes, noticed briefly and then released into quiet again. Long before homes, windows, or quiet rooms, cats listened in open landscapes. Their hearing formed in places shaped by wind, movement, and small living sounds. Grasslands at dusk, brush shifting lightly, footsteps too small to see. In these environments, sound carried information that mattered for survival, not loudly, not urgently, quietly, and precisely. The ancestors of modern cats relied on hearing to understand what lay beyond sight. Tall grass hid movement. Low light softened vision. Sound filled in the missing detail. A faint rustle could signal nearby motion. A brief squeak could reveal presence. A pause in sound could carry meaning of its own. These soundscapes were layered and subtle. Wind moved steadily. Insects created soft, repeating rhythms. Distant calls echoed gently across open space. Cats learned to listen within this complexity without becoming overwhelmed. Their hearing adapted to notice small, high-frequency sounds that traveled lightly through air. These sounds often accompanied movement close to the ground. They stood out clearly against the softer background of wind and vegetation. This sensitivity did not create constant alertness. It created clarity. Sound did not arrive as noise. It arrived as information woven into the environment. Over time, the structures of the ear, the pathways of the nervous system, and the rhythms of awareness tuned themselves to these soundscapes. Hearing became precise, layered, and calm. Even today, this ancient tuning remains present. A cat resting in a quiet room still carries this inheritance. The hearing system remains open to small sounds that might pass unnoticed elsewhere. A soft movement behind furniture, a faint sound through a window, a shift in the environment too subtle to see. These sounds arrive clearly, shaped by the same system that once listened for movement in grass and brush. The ancestral soundscape was rarely silent. It was filled with gentle, continuous noise. Wind, leaves, distant activity. Rest happened alongside these sounds, not apart from them. Cats slept while listening. They rested while remaining aware. This balance carried forward through generations. The ability to hear small sounds while remaining calm allowed cats to conserve energy. They did not need to remain alert constantly. They trusted the soundscape to signal change when it mattered. This trust remains visible today. A modern cat may rest deeply while listening to a steady background hum. The soundscape feels familiar. It echoes the continuity of ancestral environments. When a small, distinct sound appears, awareness may rise briefly. The system recognizes contrast. Once the sound passes, rest resumes. This pattern reflects ancient rhythms rather than learned behavior. Cats did not evolve to live in silence. They evolved to live within sound. Hearing became a way to stay connected to the environment without constant movement. It allowed the body to remain still while awareness remained open. This ancestral listening supports the cat's calm presence. Sound is not something to fear. It is something to inhabit. The modern world adds new layers to the soundscape. Machines, voices, distant traffic. Yet the underlying system remains the same. Cats adapt these new sounds into the same framework. Repetition creates familiarity. Consistency creates calm. What once was wind becomes a fan. What once was distant movement becomes soft footsteps. The ancestral ear continues to listen. This continuity explains why cats often seem unbothered by steady household sounds. They resemble the ongoing background noise of natural environments. At the same time, sudden or unusual sounds still stand out briefly. The ancient system notices change first, then releases it. This balance allows cats to live comfortably across environments, wild or domestic, open or enclosed. Hearing remains a quiet companion rather than a source of tension. You can imagine a cat centuries ago, resting beneath tall grass at dusk, wind moving softly, insects calling steadily, small movements happening nearby. The cat rests, listening. That same listening happens now, in a home, in a quiet room, in the presence of modern sounds. The shape of the environment changes. The rhythm of listening remains. This ancestral hearing supports the deep calm that cats carry with them. Sound continues to arrive as part of life, not as interruption. You can let this idea rest with you. Listening shaped by time. Awareness formed by continuity. Sound flows through the present, carrying echoes of ancient landscapes, supporting a sense of ease that remains steady and familiar as rest continues on its own. The world many cats live in today sounds very different from the landscapes their hearing was shaped within. Walls replace open fields, floors replace soil and grass. Yet sound continues to move through space in ways that feel familiar. In a home, sound rarely comes from one place alone. It layers itself quietly across rooms, passing through walls, ceilings, and doorways. It changes shape as it moves, becoming softer, more distant, or more contained. Appliances contribute a steady presence. A refrigerator hums softly. A heater cycles on and off. A fan turns at a slow, predictable pace. These sounds repeat in consistent patterns. They rise and fall gently, rarely surprising. Over time, they become part of the environment rather than something to notice. For cats, this consistency matters. Steady sounds help define the space. They give the home a recognizable acoustic shape. The soundscape feels stable and known. Distant traffic adds another layer. Cars pass by outside. Tires move across pavement. Occasional sounds drift through windows or walls. These noises arrive softened by distance. They do not intrude sharply. They pass through as background movement. For a cat resting near a window, this distant activity feels like part of the wider world, continuing beyond the room. It does not demand response. It simply exists. Human movement creates its own rhythms. Footsteps follow familiar paths. Doors open and close in expected ways. Objects are placed down gently or picked up again. Over time, these sounds form a pattern. They mark the flow of daily life without requiring attention. Cats learn these rhythms quickly. They recognize when movement belongs to their familiar environment. Sound becomes predictable even when it changes slightly. This predictability supports comfort. The domestic sound world also carries softness. Curtains absorb noise. Furniture dulls sharp echoes. Carpeted floors reduce impact. These surfaces shape sound gently, allowing it to spread without harsh edges. Cats respond to this softness by settling into quiet spaces. A couch, a bed, a patch of sunlight near a wall. From these places, sound arrives muted and calm. Television or music may play quietly in the background. Voices overlap gently. Rhythms repeat. These sounds often blend together into a steady hum that supports rest rather than interrupting it. Cats do not need silence to feel calm. They need consistency. A steady domestic soundscape provides that consistency. The world feels active without feeling unpredictable. Even sounds that might seem artificial adapt over time. What begins as unfamiliar becomes part of the background through repetition. A new appliance, a different routine, a temporary change. As long as the sound settles into a pattern, awareness releases it. This adaptability allows cats to live comfortably alongside human activity. They share space without needing it to be still. Listening becomes passive and relaxed. A cat may choose a resting spot based on sound as much as comfort. A quieter corner, a place where sound arrives indirectly, a location where background noise feels steady. From there, rest deepens naturally. The domestic sound world also supports orientation. Sound helps define where rooms begin and end. A kitchen sounds different from a bedroom. A hallway carries its own echo. Cats learn these distinctions easily. They know where they are without needing to look. Sound becomes part of navigation and comfort. You might notice how a cat remains calm even as activity continues around them. People move, objects shift, sound flows. The cat remains at rest. This reflects trust in the environment. The soundscape has proven itself predictable. As evening settles, the domestic sound world often softens further. Movement slows, voices quiet. Background noise becomes more even. This transition supports rest. Sound remains present, but gently so. You can let this idea settle with you. A quiet home. Sound moving softly through rooms. Nothing demanding attention. The world continues to sound steady and familiar, allowing rest to deepen as awareness remains open and relaxed, supported by the gentle rhythms of domestic life. As sound continues to arrive and pass through awareness, something subtle begins to happen. Listening becomes simpler. There is no need to identify sounds, no need to place them, no need to respond. Sound is present, and that is enough. For cats, listening often exists without interpretation. It is not something they actively do. It is something that happens naturally, alongside rest, movement, and stillness. A sound arrives. It is sensed. Then it passes. There is no analysis attached to the experience. No inner commentary. No question of meaning. This kind of listening feels spacious and open. Awareness remains wide, allowing sound to move through without narrowing focus. A cat resting in this state may appear deeply relaxed, eyes closed, body loose, breathing slow. Yet listening continues. Sound does not pull awareness forward. It does not interrupt the moment. It simply exists within it. This effortless listening allows cats to remain present without tension. There is no mental effort involved in monitoring the environment. The body receives sound as part of its natural state. In this mode, sounds do not compete with one another. They layer gently. One fades as another arrives. Nothing needs to stand out. A distant hum blends with air movement. A soft sound passes through and dissolves. The background remains steady. This quality of listening supports rest. Without interpretation, sound loses its ability to disturb. It becomes part of the atmosphere rather than an event. Cats do not hold on to sounds. They do not replay them. They do not anticipate what comes next. Each sound completes itself. This simplicity is part of why cats appear so settled in their environments. They experience the world directly, without adding layers of thought. Listening without thought does not mean absence of awareness. It means awareness without effort. Sound is received fully, then released. You might notice this if you watch a cat resting near a window. Birds call, wind moves, distant activity continues. The cat remains still. Awareness flows through sound rather than stopping on it. This way of listening allows the body to remain in balance. There is no buildup of tension, no accumulation of stimulus. Each moment stands alone. For humans, this kind of listening can feel unfamiliar at first. We often attach meaning to sound automatically. We interpret, we anticipate. Cats do not. They exist in a state where sound is part of the present moment and nothing more. As rest deepens, listening becomes even softer. Sounds blur gently at the edges. They feel farther away. Awareness loosens its grip. This transition does not require intention. It happens naturally as the body relaxes. A cat drifting towards sleep still hears. The ears remain open, but attention dissolves. Sound becomes background, then atmosphere, then something barely noticed at all. This state allows sleep to arrive without interruption. There is no sharp boundary between listening and rest. One flows into the other. You may find yourself experiencing something similar now. As you lie still, sounds may still reach you. They no longer feel important. You do not need to follow them. Listening continues quietly, without effort or thought. This simplicity is deeply restful. It allows awareness to remain present without holding on to anything. Cats live in this state easily. They move in and out of it throughout the day. Listening without thought supports their calm presence. The world is allowed to sound as it does. Nothing needs to change. You can let this idea rest with you. Sound arriving, awareness open. No need to name or understand. Everything continues on its own, gently and quietly, as listening becomes part of stillness, and stillness becomes part of listening, carrying you naturally toward rest. As the world grows quieter, sound does not disappear. It simply softens. Hearing continues, but gently now. Awareness loosens its hold. The edges of sound blur and settle into the background. For cats, this is where listening comes to rest. Not by shutting down, but by becoming light and effortless. The ears remain open. The body stays still. Nothing needs attention. Sound moves through the space quietly, without asking to be noticed. A distant hum, a soft rhythm. The faint sense of life continuing beyond the room. These sounds no longer stand apart. They blend into a single, calm presence. Awareness drifts. Thought falls away. The moment becomes simple. If you're lying down now, you may notice the same shift happening for you. Sounds that once felt clear may feel farther away. Some may fade entirely. There is no need to follow them. Listening can rest. Nothing needs to be understood or remembered. The world is safe to let go. Cats live comfortably in this state, where hearing and rest overlap. They trust the environment to continue quietly without their attention. You can allow yourself to do the same. Let sound settle. Let awareness loosen. Let the quiet continue. Sleep can arrive naturally, carried in by the steady rhythm of breath and the gentle presence of sound, fading softly into stillness as the night continues on its own.